We're getting another intro this week because it's an important week. It's an important episode, and there's a lot of things since all this stuff started with strikes on Iran and the Ayatollah getting taken out and all that. Like, there's a lot of stuff that a lot of people seem to forget and a lot of people don't seem to want to mention about the whole entire thing and their history, which hopefully, makes sense for people that don't know the things or helps them at least understand, a lot of our takes on it. So, going to go over a lot of that and some stuff, some history, not a lot of good history, but it's still history. So, stick around because I bet a lot of people don't really know a lot of these numbers. So, with that being said, welcome to the Jesse Rosinski Show. Like I said, lots of numbers, lots of stuff. Talk about a lot of people, throwing shade at the Orange Man because Orange Man bad. We all know it. We all hear it, no matter what he does, whether it's right or wrong, whether they let other people do it, without batting an eye, like it was perfectly fine saying it was completely in his authority. Suddenly he doesn't have that same authority. If you know, it's the way it is, no matter what he does. It's going to get that out of the way. But what have we seen since, the strikes on Iran, in Tehran? We lost the Ayatollah. They lost the first person they were named as the replacement. They lost 86%, I believe is the number I heard, of their capabilities to retaliate or do anything. Air Force, gone. Navy, at the bottom of the Gulf, gone. The Ayatollah is gone. Many leaders gone. First replacement, gone. And, we still see a lot of people complaining, a lot of people saying things are unconstitutional. A lot of people just flapping their gums. And sadly, Chris Murphy, and that doesn't surprise me. It is what it is with him. We all know my feelings on him. Just leave it at that. But then we get people like Mark Kelly, who actually, did time. Not in the joint, everybody. Like, he knows better, and to see him come out and say that he doesn't have the authority to do any of this makes me think of some stuff. And I got some quick stuff here because I didn't feel like typing it out. But the War Powers Resolution in 1973 requires notification of Congress within 48 hours, which you did beforehand. Limits troop commitment to 60 days plus a 30-day withdrawal period without a formal declaration or authorization. In case anyone didn't know, that's actually what it is. When all those people are saying stuff, they're full of malarkey. And might I also add, none of them had a problem when the Biden administration was dropping bombs or doing anything with anyone around the world without any of their authorization, which they have continuously gone after Trump for every single time he's done anything, even though, hate to break it to them, that War Powers Act still, it still exists, it's still a thing, even if you don't like him. Again, not trying to sound partisan, we're getting into it. And a lot of those people all said that the president has complete authority to, do airstrikes and all that stuff against people. And if you look, U.S. bombs dropped in 2016 by Barack Obama with zero authorization, right? 6 countries. Syria, 12,192 times. Iraq, 12,095 times. Afghanistan, 1,337 times. Libya, 496 times. Yemen, 35 times. Somalia, 14 times. And I guess we can hit the 7th with Pakistan being 3 times. It still happened. He didn't have to worry about anyone saying he didn't have the authority. They all said he had the authority. So guess what? If he had the authority then the orange guy does now, and all those people are just gaslighting people and lying. And we all know I hate anything, gaslighting and lying, especially with stuff like this, because it just keeps everyone turned up to 1,000,000 for no fucking reason, which keeps everybody nice and divided, instead of getting along and being able to unite and be happy about anything. And everyone went vapor spray trying to numb my throat, so I get through it if you're watching the video. And like I said, if you don't know, I know a lot of these things. Time in the Marine Corps, time in the Middle East, all kinds of briefings, all kind of everything about a lot of these things. And Iran, however you want to say it, since the Ayatollah Khomeini, the original one, 47 years ago, took power from the Shah And we saw, the hostage situation and all of that. But they funded terrorists that have killed so many innocent people around the world. It's not even like fathomable. Who do you think funded Hamas? Amazing how the Biden administration unfroze all that money and then suddenly that happened. Another story went into it already before. But Iran, this whole time, since really the Ayatollah took over, I don't think they were officially designated a state sponsor of terror until 1984, so it was a few years after the fact. But they've been providing financial support, weapons, including drones, rockets, and anti-tank systems, training, logistical aid, strategic guidance, and all kinds of support to terrorist organizations all over the world, which have been channeled primarily via the IRGC Quds Force. Again, I already knew that. I don't hear a lot of people saying it. So here we are talking about it. But it's true. It's the way they've always been. And that's the thing you never hear anyone saying during this. We could look at Hezbollah out of Lebanon, their primary and longest standing proxy of terror. Tehran provides an estimated $700 million or more in some years, along with advanced weapons, training, and ballistic missiles to Hezbollah. Hamas in the Gaza-Palestine area, we all know the name by now, historically up to $100 million annually or more in combined support to Palestinian groups, including weapons, rocket technology, and training. Palestinian Islamic Jihad, PIJ, a key Palestinian group heavily reliant on Iran for funding, for arms and training as well, that is often grouped with Hamas, funding up to $100 million plus annually to Palestinian terrorists. Houthis in Yemen, we've heard the name, some of it, hopefully a lot of you have heard the Houthis. Ansar Allah. Iran provides weapons, including ballistic missiles and drones, training, and financial logistical support, enabling attacks on shipping and regional targets. And yes, there's actually notes, just because there's a lot to go over, and I didn't want to make sure, I screwed anything up on anyone. Iraqi Shia militias, which I've heard way too much about in my lifetime, but Kataib Hezbollah receives funding, training, and sophisticated weapons from Iran, responsible for attacks on U.S. forces. Asaib al-Haq, extensively funded and trained by Iran, involved in attacks on coalition forces. Harakat al-Nujaba, sorry, I don't have my glasses on, also known as Harakat Hezbollah al-Nujaba, supported with funding, weapons, and of ties to the IRGC-QF. Other groups, like the Kataib Saeed al-Shahada, Badr Organization, the Populist Front for the Liberation of Palestine, PFLP, being the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine General Command, and Afghan Pakistani Shia militias. Support extends to militias in Syria, Bahrain, and elsewhere in the region, which again isn't good for anyone there. Some fatality numbers, which is the part that I don't think enough people understand or, heard the numbers of, or why this was a good thing to take out the Ayatollah and just eradicate that whole entire problem. But here we go. Hezbollah, responsible for the 1983 Beirut barracks bombing, with over 300 killed, including 241 U.S. troops and 58 French. 1994 AMIA bombing in Argentina with 85 killed. 2006 Lebanon war, over 1,200 Lebanese and 160 Israelis killed in that conflict. 1992 Israeli embassy bombing in Buenos Aires, 29 killed. And from 2023 to 2026 added hundreds of fatalities, mostly in cross-border exchanges with Israel. Then we get to Hamas. October 7th, 2023 attacks, 1,195 killed, including 828 civilians, brought to you by the funding from Iran. 2000 and 2004, the second Intifada, nearly 400 Israelis killed in 425 attacks. I remember that one on the news. Overall, since 2000, over 1,000 Israel deaths. The Palestinian Islamic Jihad focused on rocket and suicide attacks since the 1980s, often in coordination with Hamas. Why I say it that way? Anyway, total fatalities are estimated at 500 to 1,000, mostly being Israelis. The 1995 Betli bombing had 22 fatalities. 2002 Afula bombing had 11 fatalities, various other attacks numbering in the hundreds of fatalities. Since 2000, They've killed dozens annually, often grouped with Hamas, over 100 Israeli fatalities in joint operations. Contributed to rocket barrages during the civilian deaths in the recent Gaza conflict, which we saw all over the place with Free Palestine and all that stuff, even though we freed Palestine, Hamas went and took right back over and started doing Hamas things. So it happens when you're getting funded by someone like that. Houthis, tens of thousands of deaths attributed since 2014, primarily through the Yemen civil war, 10 to 20,000 direct fatalities, with total war deaths, including indirect deaths, numbering near 377,000. The Yemen War, 2014 and 2021, 150,000 plus direct deaths, many from Houthi offenses. Attacks on Saudi Arabia from 2014 to 2016, 500 plus killed. Red Sea attacks, 2023 to 2025, 8 killed. And U.S. strikes in 2025 resulted in the death of 53 of the Houthis in Yemen, which is a good thing for the world as a whole. Kataib Hezbollah targeted U.S. and coalition forces, causing hundreds of deaths since 2007. Total fatalities are at least 600 to 700, mostly U.S. troops and innocent Iraqi civilians. Iraq War 2003-2011, responsible for 603 U.S. troop deaths via EFPs and attacks. Recent attacks between 2019 and 2026, dozens killed, including the 2020 Camp Taji rocket attacks that caused 3 coalition deaths. Asaib al-Haq claimed 6,000 attacks on coalition forces, causing hundreds of deaths, estimated 500 to 1,000 fatalities, including U.S. troops and Iraqi Sunnis. Iraq 2006-2011, over 6,000 attacks, including the 2007 Karbala raid, leading to 5 U.S. killed in action. Sectarian killings from 2014 and beyond, scores of Sunnis abducted and killed. 2019, protests that they were involved in the killing of 500 plus protesters. And some of just the grander scale totals for all of this chaos. Iran-backed militias and terrorists have caused over 500,000 deaths globally since 1979, when the original Ayatollah Khomeini took power of the country after the Shah. And that whole situation, not getting into that, but there's a documentary, so I believe it's on Max, called Hostages. Watch it. You'll actually get to hear some stuff, from survivors and people that were involved. It'll tell you a whole lot more about the Shah and all of that if you don't know anything about it, including direct attacks and wars, 377,000 in Yemen, Syria part of 500K were them, and Iraq, thousands of U.S. and Iraqi deaths. This again includes over 1,000 Americans killed by Iranian terror proxies. So now, with all those numbers, and as you know, that was very brief. Very, very brief. But that's a lot of humanity killed just for the fuck of it because they weren't Muslim. This is not all Muslims, but that's why they were killing them. So what's the problem with someone finally actually doing something about these cocksuckers? That's my real question to the whole entire world, and us wiping them out if we can. And I see a lot of people, understandably, talking about how he's supposed to be, the president of peace and no wars. But look at all, I just went over the numbers, and you can look them up. There's numbers everywhere for innocent lives that were taken just because they fucking could, to include U.S. troops that many people might even know that were taken out by these attacks, which were paid for and sponsored by the Iranians and the regime. And what's wrong with, we tried appeasement, we tried here's money, we tried don't do that. They were never going to stop. The only way you stop something like that is to take the head off of it. And if it regrows a head, take that fucker off too. And the next one, and the next one, because they're never going to stop. And think, as you're talking, I see a lot of people talking about, the peace president and, talking all of that about that, which I understand. But after all the numbers you just heard, and if your brain's just, going right now, thinking about all of it, think of all the innocent lives and the networks that were just crippled by the fact that the regime could be no more and they won't be getting hundreds of millions of dollars annually and weapons and rockets and drones and all of this if the Iranian regime isn't there. And think about the level of peace that could help bring to the whole entire world if someone finally makes it so that snake can't regrow its head. Will there always be crazy people out there? Yes, there's nothing you could do about that. No matter where you are, there's crazy people in all walks of life that hate someone. It's just the way it is. We're never going to take care of it fully. I don't think it's possible. But think of the peace that it could bring to, that region and, the world if people don't have to worry about, these people getting hundreds of millions of dollars and all this stuff to attack them with. What are they going to do if all that money dries up? If there's no terror regimes, sponsoring them like we see that, Iran has done since Khomeini took power in 79. If they don't have that money, what the hell can they do? They don't get the, weapons. What can they do? If we take care of all of those people, think of the peace that could bring to the whole entire world. And that's what I wish more people would see with them doing these strikes and taking these people out. It is possible. Will it take a hell of a lot of work? Yes, but it is possible. Turn it back to what it was before the Ayatollah. It's possible. They stand up and do their own thing, and they're backed by the proper people that we see in the region that don't want to go out and just blow up everybody just because they fucking can. They don't want the chaos. They don't want the destruction. They don't want the death. They don't want the dead bodies. They don't want to chant death to America. There's so many of them over there that could help make this an existential thing and a great change for the whole entire world. People just thought big picture. Because that's really what it is. Well, everyone else is like, we'll just appease him. We'll do this. We'll do this. He's like, fuck it. I'm just going to cut the head off the damn thing. Because it's never done anything in all these years, and they just keep doing whatever the fuck they want. And, they keep making it worse. They keep just accelerating the chaos. And I know a lot of people are mad. I know a lot of people don't like it. I know a lot of people probably don't know what to think. A lot of people out there probably, I know there's people out there doing the Orange Man bad thing. But if you think beyond, what all the idiots are telling you, what all Elizabeth Warrens and the Mark Kellys and the Chris Murphys and the Hakeem Jeffries and the list goes on and fucking on, telling him he doesn't have the authority, he does. And they've been there long enough to see what these fuckers do. They had no problem with anyone else doing it, except this guy's actually doing it to finally possibly end the whole entire thing out of Iran. So if we get it done quick enough and we could save all those innocent lives and American lives and Israeli lives and Iraqi lives and all of them, why is that a bad thing? Especially if it's not like a big full-on war, like we've decimated them in 20 minutes, really? And again, the big question from all of it, if you listen to it all, I appreciate it. The big question is, like, just for you, it's not even a question really, but just stop and think what the world would be like, especially in the Middle East where all the people are doing all the crazy shit, which keeps all the conflicts going. Think if we cut the head off of that and they were no longer funded and supplied anymore to create chaos. They lost a whole entire country worth of just do whatever the fuck you want. Like, think of how good that could be for the world. And that is a thought process for the Orange Man and people on the right that are in favor of it. If you don't understand, like, that's it. Think if we finally ended that. Because there are a lot of military powers, in the region that don't want crazy. I mean, there's some that do, but if you minimize it down to, we take care of this one and that one, sooner or later, it's a much smaller problem and a lot less people have to die over nothing. And personally, I think that's good for the world. So think past all the bullshit, all the, gaslighting, all the everything you see, all the lies from senators, all the everything, and just think if we could take that big of a head off of, terrorism and all the groups killing all these people, how better the world would be. And then you'll understand the thought process. And everyone's going to say there's oil, there's this, there's all kinds of other things involved. But Jesus wept. Think if we just ended. I mean, I just told you what, hundreds of millions of dollars going. Think if that's gone. And no more drones and no more rockets, no more guns, no more training, no more logistical help, no more planning, no more anything. Think of how the world will be. And then hopefully the whole entire thing makes sense to you. Peace.